In 2019, I opened my own practice. Super scared. I have no idea what I was doing, no business experience or anything like that. But I was able to have a full schedule within 3 months. So I was shocked by that.
Katie Garrett, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Hi, I'm doing great. Thank you.
So thanks for doing this. This will be fun. So your background, just a little bit, you're going to cover more of it because obviously you can introduce yourself way better than I can, but you used to be a personal trainer, wellness coach, functional medicine, clinical nutritionist. You obviously have done, as one might say, all the things in the health and fitness industry. And how did you get started? How did you get your first client? What does that look like?
So I went back to school to get my graduate degree in functional medicine and human nutrition. And in my last year in grad school, I started working with a clinic that was functional medicine leaning. So they were aware of it. They go to some trainings, but they weren't exactly fully practicing it. So they were very friendly to it. So I started off at that clinic and being the nutritionist for the doctors. So the doctors realized, okay, this patient has something going on, that's nutrition can help. And then they would refer to me. So I did that for about 3 years, getting all this great experience working under the supervision of the main doctor there who was fully functional medicine trained. And that gave me all of the confidence and the exposure to different ideas and treatments. And I got to meet with all kinds of supplement reps and lab reps and just know all the ins and outs of the industry. And I'm very fast moving. I evolve constantly. I'm changing my ways all the time. And that doesn't really work in a very large practice, especially one that still is using insurance and has a foot in the door of conventional medicine. So I ended up needing to move on from that. So in 2019, I opened my own practice. Super scared. I have no idea what I was doing, no business experience or anything like that. But I was able to have a full schedule within 3 months. So I was shocked by that. But I think what really helped me was that while I was still at the clinic, I had already had a blog. So I had a website and a blog because I wanted to have like an evidence-based explanation for why I was working with the client in this way. So when they would ask me a question and I'd have 10 or 15 people ask me the same question, then in my head, I was like, I need to write a blog post about that to explain it. So next time they ask me about it, I can just be like, go read this. I also created some blogs because I wanted them to have something they could print out and bring to their doctor when their doctor was like, you need 1,200 milligrams of calcium carbonate for your bone health. And I'm like, that's actually not healthy. And so I would create a blog post with all the research showing why they don't need to be doing that they could then bring to their doctor and kind of explain why they're not listening.
Can be candor. I love your disagreeableness of like a doctor's like, you should be doing this. And you're like, nah, that's actually dumb. Like, I don't know.
I think it comes from being from Detroit. I'm like not afraid to be slightly confrontational in a respectful way.
I love that. Okay. So let's dig into that a little bit more. So you had a full practice within 3 months. Do you think that has to do with the fact that you probably had a blog following and they just kind of transitioned into being your patients? Or like, tell me more.
Yeah, because I think some people already knew about me. So when I saw a patient at the clinic, they might tell their neighbor or their friend or their mom or things like that about me. And so it gave people the ability to subscribe to my newsletter and see what I was putting out. So there was already that trust factor. And so when I emailed my list and let them know, hey, I started my own practice, there were a ton of people that were like, okay, now I'll see you, because they didn't know the clinic that I was working at. They didn't know what it was going to be like, or, how much flexibility I had to kind of practice the way I wanted. So once they found out I was on my own, then I was like, I know exactly what I'm getting. So I think that helped people who had just been familiar with me to finally pull the plug and be like, yeah, it's time for me to go see her. And then also some patients that I had been seeing at the clinic were able to find me because they had already been interacting with me on my website.
I love that. So were you also sending emails to those people like while you're working at that other company, or were you just blogging and then just pushing out the blog?
Yeah, I was just blogging and then pushing out an email to anyone on my list that I had released a new blog post. So the blogs, like the doctors use the blog post, so the practice found value in that because it was helping to train everyone and all the patients at the clinic could, utilize that information. And I talked sometimes about supplements and they sold supplements there. So like they found value to me doing that because they weren't paying me for it. I was doing that on my own time and yet they could use it to improve their patient's experience. Plus, it just allowed me to have a way for anyone to interact directly with me, not have to go through the clinic.
So you were sort of becoming the thought leader. Obviously, other people referring to you in terms of like, if you need more information on this, go to Katie. She obviously knows a lot about this.
I guess you could put it that way.
Seriously, because that sounds what was happening is that you became the resource or the person that people turned to when they had questions about this. And
Hmm.
so were you targeting like specific topics, specific people? Was it just questions that your patients were asking you? How did you figure out your content?
It was really just based off of what I saw being asked over and over again, or what I felt strongly about that they might need some evidence in order to put it into action. So anything that like just needed more explanation that I wasn't going to have time to do in the appointments, or that I just felt like either the doctors or the clients were asking repeatedly about. So I'm really, really big on efficiency.
Yeah.
So it's like if I've had to repeat myself like more than 10 times on something, it's getting written down somewhere and it's going to be able to be copy and pasted or easily referenced.
As crazy as this sounds for somebody, I'm more on the tech side of this industry now. And so you'd be a great programmer because that's what programming is anytime you have to do
Oh.
something more than once, you essentially are just creating a system so that it does it automatically. If it could be repeated, it can be automated. That's all programming
Mm.
is. Total tangent. But so let's get more into, okay, so you have a full practice. And so let's speak to anybody that's maybe in that position of, all right, I have more patients that I know what to do. What do I do next?
Yeah. Oh man, it was a hard year before I had anyone helping me out with anything. So you definitely have to be motivated because I was definitely putting in like 70-hour weeks regularly.
Jeez.
I know because it was like during the day I just did seeing clients, and then the evenings and weekends was for all the things about running a business. So after kind of realizing that I had reached my max, which I would recommend people don't wait that long. Don't wait until you've reached your max if you can stand it. But I was like, okay, I need to start hiring someone. And I didn't really know what that would look like, but I knew I needed another nutritionist to help me see my patients. And I am a like alumni ambassador kind of person for my graduate school. And so they send interested people in their program or people who've graduated and need some help kind of figuring getting their bearings to me. And so I actually had an email from a fellow alumni, and she was just like, hey, I need a supervisor to get my certificate. Do you have anyone you could recommend? I'm, also kind of just looking for like how to get these hours. And I was like, yeah, I know someone myself. So that's how I got my first employee. Also would not recommend that
Mm,
because I didn't go through the full hiring process. So I had no idea what I was really doing. It was just kind of like, this is a need. Here's someone who can meet it. Let's run with it, which tends to be how I do things. I'm kind of impulsive, which I think a lot of entrepreneurs are. And so I think it's just so much more effective when you're like being really thoughtful and intentional, and you have like a plan and you have questions that you know are going to help you to figure out if they're a good fit and where they would fit. And then you have like a handbook and policies, and the employee knows what to expect and all of that. And so because I didn't have those things, I just like give the most kudos to my first employee because she put up with so much because nothing was decided ahead of time. And but yeah, I wanted her to excel in everything she did. And so it was like really hard for her because she didn't know what my expectations were because I didn't have that written down somewhere. But yet it was like, I need you to perform well. And I didn't really define what that meant. So
totally. I always tell people that if your business systems are in your head, that's not where your business should be. If you don't
yeah, I
have
had
the
to learn the hard
systems,
way.
yeah, if you don't have the systems and processes in place, you're kind of in trouble. I literally just before this call, Katie, got off the phone with another PT out of Austin, Texas, and she's literally been practicing for, I think, 30 years. And she still to this day doesn't have like the playbook. She still to this day doesn't
Wow.
have the handbook on how she's doing this. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, one person leaves or you want to eventually sell this thing, how are you ever going to
Right.
hand this to somebody else? Like, so totally. Okay. So what do you recommend? So is that something that you started doing? Was you started figuring out those systems and then just writing that out and giving that to the person that you hired? Or how did you figure out your standard operating procedures?
Yeah, I just started writing everything down that I do. So I just created a Google Drive document and just started writing everything down when my new hire, who ended up being my nutritionist and my office manager. So she's running the support inbox and the calendar and all that kind of stuff. It's like anytime she asks me how to do something and I reply in an email, I take whatever is in that email and put it in the standard operating procedures that I have in Drive. Same thing on her end. Anything that she's like, "Hey, what do I do with this?" And then I reply, and then I'll say like, "Why don't you add this to the Drive doc and put all the details that you would think of that I wouldn't think of because it's just in my head." So it's super helpful to just have that outside perspective, helping me to work on it because there's way more in that Drive document than there would have been if it was just me trying to think through it. Because I don't know what I just naturally know that others aren't going to know.
Totally. So, is this just like the one world's longest Google document drive or what?
No, so I've got a like a practice documents folder, and it has an admin handbook. So it's all the stuff that we do on the back end. It has a nutritionist handbook. So all the stuff that you do with viewing, facing the nutritionist. It has like a checklist for each appointment type, and then it has client communication. So it's all of our like constantly repeated responses that we have that we can just copy and paste from that document into the notes or our chat messages or emails. So there's a good like, and then there's like a lab document and a supplements document.
Mm.
And then in those documents, the front page is a table of contents. Again, something that my office manager knew that I didn't, that was really helpful. So we can just click on the table of contents and it takes us right to where in the document the information is.
So I'm totally speaking from somebody who's also figuring this out myself. So that's kind of the reason I'm asking all
Hmm.
these questions. And so I love your idea about the checklist. And there's actually a great book about that, the Checklist Manifesto. I can't remember what doctor actually wrote about it. Great book, but basically he talked about how even something like a surgical procedure, like if you don't have a very specific
Hmm.
checklist, things get missed. Well, all businesses are the exact same way. Do you have a specific process in terms of getting clients and getting referrals and getting more people in the door?
So it's just been really through patients themselves has been the biggest area. And that is through having everything be as like clinically excellent as possible, through just making sure that all the resources that we're providing would answer any of their questions and help them to know why they're doing what they're doing. To our back end electronic health record is really efficient and it's nice to look at and it houses everything that we need. To our response times and the ability for them to reach out to us in between. I think all of those things help the patient to want to talk about us more, in addition to, of course, just the results that they get. So there's like the whole experience of it, not just like, what can you do, but it's like, how are you doing it? So that has been the biggest way is just people are just referring to us. But then I also have doctors and other providers that I've established relationships with, usually because I've used them myself, because I always have my health issues that I'm working through. And then I seek out someone who's like minded and start working with them. And then I'm like, hey, you could really help a lot of my patients. And then they're like, hey, you could too. So I would say that's how I've ended up with a number of referring providers. I'm not utilizing that to the max that I could. I want to be able to have like a regular practitioner newsletter where I'm sending them case studies and testimonials, as well as interesting research. But we do get a number of referrals from them. And then we're also listed on the Institute for Functional Medicine's website as a practitioner. And then, of course, Google. So when people type in nutritionist Fort Worth or functional medicine Fort Worth, we're one of the top options because we have like 14 reviews and like most nutritionists have zero, or if they do, it's like one or two. So it's not a hard market.
Right. So where are you funneling all these people? So it seems like, let's say you get a referral or somebody looks you up online or a doctor refers you, like where are they ending up? Are they just like reaching out on your contact form? Do you have
Mm.
like some sort of freebie? Like how does that look?
So they are reaching out in the contact form, or they are just scheduling a discovery call. So on our website, we have a calendar, so they can click the Get Started tab and then click Book an Appointment, and they can book a complimentary 15-minute call. So we usually do like 2 to 4 of those per week. And then we have the contact form that goes to our support inbox that my office manager helps to look through. And then I would say the ones that come from doctors, they usually just end up calling us, which is like I always want to avoid, because getting on the phone with people when it's not scheduled, like, is not usually efficient. So I've given my cards and our brochures of our practice to the providers, but somehow they just usually end up, their patients call us. And so I have like a time of day each week where I go back and call those people and do basically an impromptu complimentary discovery call. So then when I do that discovery call, I kind of decide, after knowing their story, which provider in my practice would be best to see them, because there's 4 of us total now.
Wow, congrats.
Thank you.
I love your focus on efficiency. I know something I'm trying to figure out more as well. Katie Garrett, thank you. Appreciate you being on the show. We'll make sure to put everything in the show notes. And until next time, thanks.
Thank you so much for having me.